bit more about GSK, about what we do, about what the company is involved with, and all the different student and graduate opportunities that we have on offer at the moment, which hopefully will be really relevant for you. Then we'll also go through some top tips for when you're making your application as well. We are also very lucky to be joined by three of my colleagues. So we've got some of our current placement students, some of our graduates, and also a former placement student who's a current York St John student, I believe, is with us as well. So each of them are going to talk for a few minutes too, and tell you a little bit more about their experiences, a little bit more about any tips that they might have for you, and a bit more about what they do day to day to help try and bring some of the roles to life a little bit and help you see which part of the business might be a good fit for you. So without further ado, I'm going to get started, and then we'll bring in our current grads and placement students a little bit later in the session. As Tom mentioned at the beginning, if you do have any questions, if anything isn't making sense, if you want anything clarified, anything like that, please do drop a question into the chat box, and we'll certainly go through any and all questions towards the end of the session. And I know this is being recorded as well, but we can turn that recording off when we get to questions if you do have anything that you wouldn't like to be recorded in terms of questions and that sort of thing too. So as I mentioned, my name's Josh. I work in the early talent recruitment team. So that means we're responsible for running our recruitment and recruiting for our industrial placement program and for our graduate program. So I'm located and I'm based at our head office, which is in West London, GSK House. Not there at the moment, working from home at the moment, but typically that's where I would be on a day-to-day basis. So we do have sites across the UK. Our head office and the company's kind of global HQ is where we're typically based in London. I know many of you, if you've kind of joined this session, you probably do know a little bit about GSK already. You might know a little bit about what we do, what the company's mission is, that sort of thing. But if not, I mean, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to give you a very quick overview about that now. So as you may be aware, GSK are a science-led and global healthcare company, and the company has a very special, what I think is a very kind of unique purpose, and that purpose is really the main reason why I wanted to apply to the company a couple of years ago, and why I did come and join GSK. Is that purpose of everything that we do, everything the company does, everything we're involved with, has that idea in mind of helping people to do more, to feel better, and to live longer. So anything that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, working for GSK, whether directly or indirectly, has that mission in mind, and that's something that I really like about the company. That's what really jumped out at me when I first was thinking about making an application, and hopefully that is an idea, that is a purpose, that's a mission that really resonates with you, and I think that that it is something that's quite unique. So to do this, we've got three kind of main global businesses. Pharmaceutical side of the business, which is quite well known. We're often known as a pharmaceutical company, and that side of our business makes our kind of life-saving medicines. We're also one of the world's largest vaccines companies. There's been a lot in the media over the last few weeks and months about GSK's vaccines business, and it is one of the largest in the world. We've got a lot of kind of new partnerships over the last few months with some other kind of major companies working quite closely together on the COVID vaccine. So you may have seen quite a bit about GSK in the media and the news over the last few weeks about that part of our business. And then finally, we also are one of the world's largest consumer healthcare businesses. So we have brands like Sensodyne, like Aquafresh, like loads of other things you've probably used yourself, you've probably seen in Boots. And we're in the middle of a joint venture with another huge healthcare company, Pfizer, on that part of our business. So it's a very exciting time within consumer healthcare at GSK as well. So that's a kind of quick overview about our company. But I think what's the most important thing, and what's the thing that really jumps out at me, and the thing that I really like the most about working for GSK, I think, is the culture at the company. I think that's quite unique. It's very different from any other places that I've worked so far. And I think it is a really important thing to kind of flag and highlight to you if you are potentially interested in considering making an application. I think the idea that you can be you, feel good, and keep growing really underpins the culture at GSK. The idea that we all bring something unique, which is a really great thing. The idea that people can have flexible working, people can have a focus on well-being. You can do loads of stuff outside of work that it's not going to impact on your work, and that's a really, really good thing. And the idea that you can grow, you can develop, you can improve, you can have loads of different roles, loads of different things you can get involved with at GSK. And when the people are growing, the company's going to be improving, and that. So I think that's really is a really kind of important thing. I remember turning up at GSK for my interview. I remember coming into that kind of huge glass corporate looking building and being like really, really intimidated and thinking, oh, this is going to be like the most corporate, intimidating atmosphere I've ever seen. And then you go in and it's the complete opposite of that. It is very, very friendly. Everyone's very, very kind of approachable and normal and nice. And it is like the least corporate kind of big company that I've ever worked for, ever kind of been involved with. So I certainly think that's something that jumps out of me as being a really, really important positive thing about GSK. So we've got this idea, this culture, it really underpins the management within the company. We've got 13 different employee resource groups with areas like the Women's Leadership Initiative, the Disability Confidence Network, Spectrum, which is our LGBTQ plus network, and loads of other networks as well that really help shape the company in the direction and really help underpin this idea of be you, feel good, keep growing. I think that's what's really, really my favorite thing about working for GSK. So I'm going to move on now to talk a bit more practically to you all about some of the programs, some of the different roles that we have on offer at the moment. We do have all of our placement roles, or at least the vast majority of our placement roles are open right now. And we are also opening our graduate roles in a couple of days' time. So I'll go through quickly about what each of these are. I'm not going to go into each different business area in huge amounts of detail, as I know that we've got people on this call or people who will be listening back to this recording from loads of different degree areas, from loads of different year groups as well. But I'll give you a quick kind of overview of all our different programs. So our industrial placement program, the majority of these roles opened about 2 weeks ago and are open again for another week or two. So you do have plenty of time if you are typically at the start of your second year or you're on your kind of penultimate year looking for a year in industry. So we do have a couple of our current placement students on the call who will be chatting to you about their experiences in a few moments' time. But I'm sure they'll tell you many of these things. It's all around kind of a huge community of placement students that you have here. We have over 300 placement students joining us each year, which makes us one of the largest placement companies in the country. This is also across pretty much all of our business areas. So no matter what degree you're studying, no matter what grades you've got even, we will have a role, we will have an opportunity that will be a good fit for you. And we also have summer placement roles as well. These are opening a little bit later in the year towards December. So if you're not sure if you want to commit to a kind of full year in industry, maybe 8 to 12 weeks, we do have summer placements. But I would like to highlight our industrial placements that we do have a lot of different opportunities. I'll let our current placement students tell you a little bit more about what they do on a day-to-day basis, but you get a huge amount of responsibility fairly quickly, a lot of kind of tangible things you can put on your CV, and a really, really good experience. The first kind of dip your toe into the kind of working world. It's a fantastic start to your career. We do have roles, as I mentioned, across so many different business areas. So no matter what you're interested in, there's going to be something that's going to be relevant and you're going to be interested by, I'm sure. So if you're interested in working on our supply chain, how do we kind of make and get those products out to the people that need them? We've got roles within supply chain. If you're interested in engineering and kind of making our manufacturing sites work as efficiently and smoothly as possible, we've got various different engineering streams available. We've got roles, we've got over 150 odd roles within research and development as well. So if you're interested in working in R&D, there's so many different options there. They're largely based in our R&D hub, which is just north of London in Stevenage. Then if you're interested on the business operations side of things, we've got roles in finance, communications, business and marketing, and that's within our consumer healthcare part of our business, which I talked about a little earlier. And then procurement, which is all about kind of buying the right products, buying the right services. You'll be hearing from one of our current procurement IPs a little bit later. And then within HR as well, so the team that I operate in within human resources. So there's loads and loads of different areas. Many of these roles, particularly HR, business and marketing, they're open to any degree subject as well. You don't have to be studying something that's directly relevant to this. So it'll be open to you no matter what degree. And for the majority of these roles as well, they're not asking for any particular grades either. We're more interested and we're really looking for your potential and your strengths more so than what you've done in the past. So I know many of you listening now or listening back on the recording will be kind of in your last year or looking ahead to what you're going to do after you graduate. What different roles would you like to do once you finish university? And our Future Leaders program is our best known. It's our largest graduate program. We don't take on thousands of graduates on our Future Leaders program each year. We are looking for the most kind of committed, the most dedicated people who are interested in joining us across lots of different functions available. I'll go through what those are in a few moments. So we typically take on about 50 or 60 graduates on our graduate programs each year. So there's a huge amount of breadth and depth you get. No matter what kind of team or department, you'll do different rotations and get a really good understanding of how that works. So a lot of training and investment goes into our future leaders. And it's not just the name of the program. We are genuinely looking for people who could be the future leaders of GSK. So it's a really, really exciting opportunity. And all of our roles within our future leaders program and our other graduate opportunities are all opening in 2 days' time. So on Wednesday. So it's quite good timing. So if you are interested in our kind of looking at a graduate role, I'd strongly recommend having a look on kind of Wednesday, Thursday time when they're just opened. You'll get your pick of like the wide range of roles. So here's a kind of quick breakdown of the different opportunities that we have. So on our future leaders and our graduate programs. So within sales and marketing, we've got commercial management graduate program. In consumer healthcare, we'll be hearing from one of our current commercial management graduates a little bit later. We've got also the commercial management future leaders program within our pharmaceutical part of our business. We've got various opportunities within business operations, so technology, communications, finance, HR, procurement, loads of roles within engineering and our manufacturing side of things, as well as supply chain data and quality, and various different graduate opportunities within research and development as well. So this is kind of illustrative of the sort of roles that we open each year. We do have that full breakdown and the full list of roles that will be opening this year on our website, and I'll drop the link in the chat box a little bit later. But if you do want to put some kind of key dates into your diary for important things and when we're opening and all that sort of thing for this time round, our placement roles, the vast majority of which opened a couple of weeks ago, and we do have a few more roles opening in November too. So I'd strongly recommend, if you're looking at a placement, to get on that fairly soon. They are largely going to be open for the next kind of week or two, so I would recommend checking that out sooner rather than later. And then your assessment centres, if you're applying now, will be towards the end of 2020, so kind of late November, early December time. Our graduate programs as well are opening on Wednesday, the October the 7th. And then the assessment centres for these will be, again, kind of November, December time. And then typically it varies a little bit depending on what role you're going for and your own personal circumstances. But typically you'd be starting with us the following summer. So in between kind of June to September time, depending on roles and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go through a quick kind of overview now about our process, what that involves, and how you can do better and do as well as you possibly can. And then we'll pass over to some of my colleagues to talk to you through about some of their experiences so far too. So I'm going to go to start with, what is our application process? Hopefully, after listening to some of these things, after listening to the overview of the company culture and the different programs, hopefully you are interested in making an application to us. We'd love it if you did. And if you do, this is the process that you'll have to go through. So importantly, and the kind of first thing to flag, that our recruitment process is from beginning to end is strengths based. So that means we're looking at your strengths, we're looking at your potential, we're looking at your engagement. Those are the most important things rather than what you've done in the past. So we're looking at what you can bring going forward rather than previous had. So we are looking at your strengths, and that's important to keep in mind when you're doing an application with us. So no matter what role you're applying for, it starts with a very quick eligibility form. Only takes about 5 minutes. You just put in some basic information, making sure you're in the right kind of year of study or the right kind of degree or whatever it might be. It only takes a few minutes. Then you'd be invited to take the World of GSK, which is an online test. You watch a few videos, you're given different scenarios. It's all based around the GSK values. So it's a really good way of you finding out what those are, and a really good way of you as well seeing do your own values, are they kind of reflected in those of GSK? Is it the sort of company you'd like to work for? Is it the sort of place where you could see yourself going in every day? And it also is, as far as online tests go, one of the slightly more enjoyable ones because you get to watch lots of videos and that sort of thing. It's not timed, so it can take as long or as short as you like, really. Typically takes people about an hour, maybe about an hour and a half or so, depending on how long you actually take to do it. Then if you're applying for one of our placement roles, you'd be then invited to fill out an application form, which is a few kind of written questions about your motivations. Alternatively, if you're going for one of our graduate programs, there'd be an online job preview simulation where it gives you a really good taste of the job that you're actually applying for and what you're actually going into. You might do things like reply to an example email, and you'll ask some kind of video questions as well. So it really helps you to know as well, is this the sort of role that you're actually genuinely interested in? So that's our kind of third stage. And then finally, you'd be invited to one of our assessment centres, which for this year are all going to be online. So typically we'd invite you into one of our sites, one of our offices. For this year, as I think many companies are doing, our assessment centres are all going to be through Teams or a similar software to what we're using right now. And you'll have a mix of one-on-one exercises with an assessor. You'll have some interviews as well, but they'll all be through kind of video using software similarly to what we're using right now. So that's our assessment centre. And then finally, hopefully, you'd have an offer to come and join us. So in terms of a few kind of top tips for our strengths-based process, you'll feel this probably most keenly and most clearly that you're in a kind of strengths-based assessment when you come to one of our assessment centres and you're having a strengths-based interview. That's the most obvious time when you're doing a kind of a strengths-based assessment. So they're quite different to interviews that some people may have done in the past. A lot of people do and have experience of competency-based interviews, which are often questions around kind of tell me a time when you've worked in a team or those sorts of things, all around kind of you giving examples of things that you've done in the past. Where we differ and where strengths-based interviews are slightly different is we're looking more further forward. So we're looking at things that you actually like to do, things that you do quite a lot, things that you're actually good at. So we're all looking at the different skills that engage you, your own individual motivations and what kind of drives you, as well as how you react to different, maybe hypothetical situations. So we really want to get to know you through these kind of interviews and these assessments authentically and as a person and get kind of genuine responses from you. So it is quite difficult to prepare in comparison to some other interviews you may have done before. So it's hard to kind of typically on a competency-based interview, you can read the job description and have a few kind of ideas about what might come up. And it is slightly more difficult to prepare for one of our strengths-based interviews, but that's because we don't want you to be able to just rehearse your answer and recite it when you're in the interview. We do want to get to know you a little bit more, get to know you kind of authentically. Importantly, to add, when with one of our, you're not going to get any probing questions. So your assessor is going to ask you your question, you're going to respond, and then they're going to move on to the next question. So it's important to highlight that if you are in that interview and if you answer in kind of one sentence, they are going to move on to the next one. They're not going to say, oh, please, can you go into a bit more detail? Or what do you mean by that? So please do make sure that you give as full a response for any of our questions as you can. I'd say typically a decent length answer for one of our interview questions, maybe about a minute and a half, minute or so. So they are slightly shorter than you might do if you are doing a competency-based interview. So that's a kind of quick overview about strengths-based interviews. What is really, really important as well, and probably the main thing that I'd flag before you even submitting that initial application, is read through what our values and expectations are. They really, really do underpin the whole process. They underpin the online test. They really are what we're looking for in a candidate. These values are at the heart of everything that GSK does. I talked earlier about how strong the culture is at the company, and our values and expectations are really, really important to this. So I definitely recommend reading up on this as much as you can. They really do help define the culture. They make the company able to do really great things, make it a great place to work, help us be really focused on those patients and the consumers and the people that actually need the products that GSK makes. So we've got values around patient focus. Everything we do, as I mentioned, has that patient, has that consumer at the end of the supply chain in mind. We've got really strong values around transparency, respect for other people, integrity. then expectations around what we're looking for and what you need to show to be successful in our application around courage, accountability, development, particularly kind of your own personal self-development and teamwork as well. If you can show all of these things, you're going to do really, really well in one of GSK's applications. And we've got loads and loads of information on our website about each of these different areas, each of these different things, how that works for GSK. So I'd strongly recommend reading up on that as much as you can, reading into that into a bit more detail even before you submit that initial application, as it is the thing that underpins our process. And this isn't only important for when you're going for a placement or graduate role. Anyone who comes into GSK needs to show the GSK values. It is that important to us. So I'd strongly recommend you read up on this before making an application. And certainly if you are invited to an assessment centre, certainly do so then as well, because it is very important. Then I'm going to leave you with a couple more tips before we pass over to a few of my colleagues. So a few other tips for if you are applying or coming to one of our assessment centres is to think about what your own strengths are. So if you are asked that in an interview, it can throw people a little bit. But if you understand what your strengths are through maybe using this site, jobme.com, you can put a bit of information about yourself, and they'll tell you what your strengths are, what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, how that relates to the workplace, that sort of thing. That'll really help you self-reflect and prepare for a strengths-based assessment and a strengths-basbased interview. Then we do, as I mentioned, we've got an online test, which is part of our process. And we work with a company called CAP, CAPP, to help put that together and to run those online tests. They also help with some of our interview questions and our assessment centres as well. So they do have a lot of practice questions and kind of practice online tests on their website. So practice.capassessments.com, and that can really help and make it a little bit less scary than when you're doing it for real. So you can practice through a number of those different assessments. Then think about your motivation. As I mentioned, that's a really important thing, what we're looking for, people who are genuinely motivated to come and work here. So if you have genuine reasons why you want to apply for GSK, if you've got genuine reasons why you want to apply for the role that you are, then please get that across. And if you're not sure, if you can't think of any reasons why you're interested, it might genuinely not be the right role for you. Then do your research as much as you can. There's so much about GSK throughout the media at the moment. There's a lot throughout social networks. We've got, as I mentioned, over 300 IPs who are placement students who have joined us fairly recently and often posting about their different experiences. So I strongly recommend you using those social networks, using the media coverage to learn a little bit more about us and our different roles. Then think about what appeals about the company and what appeals about the role as well. In any interview and any process that you go through, you're going to be asked for your motivation and why you're genuinely interested. So thinking about that, thinking about what appeals specifically about the company, appeals specifically about whatever role you're going for, you're going to do much, much better. And then be as specific as you can. So anything that's really, really vague or general or could apply to any company is not really what we're looking for. So be as specific as you can, be as enthusiastic as you can, and try and be as engaged as you can throughout a process, and you'll do really, really well. And I think that's my last tip. But as I mentioned, we've got our placement roles are open now. Our graduate roles are open on Wednesday the 7th, so a couple of days time. So I'd strongly recommend checking those out and reading through a bit more about, do your research first, read up on our values and that sort of thing, and then certainly as soon as you can, do submit that kind of initial application, particularly for our placement roles, which are closing fairly soon. And please do. I know we've seen a couple of questions come through while I've been talking, and we'll answer all the questions at the end. But if you do have any other questions as we're going through it, please do pop them into the chat box. I'm now going to pass over to a couple of my colleagues who are going to speak for a couple of minutes each about their experiences. So I believe we're actually joined by a current York St John's student, Lucy, who's with us, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe we'll come back to her in a little bit. But Melissa, I believe Melissa is with us. Melissa, did you want to say hello?
Hi.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll pass
Melissa.
over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Melissa, and I'm a biomedical science student at the University of York. My role is in clinical operations, but I also attended the assessment centre for data management. So if you've got any questions about either of those departments, feel free to pop them in the chat. So I started applying to different placements in September last year. Like I said, I attended the assessment centres for both of them, and it was a really relaxed environment. I know it's easy for you to hear us say that, and Yeah, still, yeah, you can easily get stressed about it and worried about it, but it was really relaxed. The main thing that helped me, I think, was doing mock interviews with the placement coordinator at York, and that really helped because I'd never done a strengths-based interview before. But also, like, even though it's a different type of interview, it worked really well for me because I never had any science-based work experience before GSK. So it's easy to think that you wouldn't get a placement because you haven't got any experience, but that's definitely not the case. And the strengths-based interview really helped. Yeah, focusing on what like potential you do have instead of focusing on what you haven't done before. So I've just finished my first month with GSK and I'm currently working from home in Lincolnshire. I'm working on 2 clinical trials, and so far I've had a lot of responsibilities, and that's really shocked me that I've had this much responsibility this early on. So I've been updating official clinical trial documents. I've been taking part in weekly meetings with contractors all over the world that help run the trials. And I've just been put in charge of the internal social media for these trials as well. So for the year. So basically, if there's ever a milestone or if they just want to tell people what's going on, I'll be posting on their social media, yeah, to let people know. And even though I'm working from home, there's still been a lot of support. So I don't know whether if you start next year, we don't know what will be happening with COVID and everything, like whether you'll be in the office or from home. But I can I can only speak for me, and I can say that I've had a lot of support. So I've had weekly calls with my manager. She's just checking in on me. I've had calls with the other industrial placement students. So it's not like we're just working by ourselves. We've been catching up with each other a lot and getting to know each other still, even though it's online. And I've also started getting involved with extracurricular activities, even though it's only been a month. So I've signed up to be a STEM ambassador. So I'll be doing more of this kind of thing, really, talking to people. And it'll also be talking to schools as well, just about the kind of work that I do and getting people interested in science. We're doing fundraising as well. We're doing a little competition between the placement students. And I've just got on the committee as well to help organise events for the year for all the placement students as well. So, like Josh said, everyone really is just really nice. And I know, again, it's easy to hear that and think, oh, I'm just saying that, but I'm really not. Everyone has been so approachable. And yeah, anyone's up for a chat or tell you what their job role is. So, yeah, I can really recommend it. And feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks, Melissa. That's great. And yeah, if you do have any questions for Melissa or for any of our speakers, please do pop them into the chat and we'll answer all the questions at the end. I've just seen that we do have Lucy. So sorry, Lucy, I skipped over you quite quickly, but we can go back to you now. So Lucy is a current student at the university and did an industrial placement with us last year. So I believe, Lucy, you're just going to chat for a couple of minutes about how you found it.
Yeah, can I just check that you can hear me now?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay,
it wasn't
perfect.
Working before.
No, it wasn't working before, no. Yeah, so I guess what I just want to talk about some things that really stood out to me through my placement. Talk about something like tips that I would give you for when you're doing interviews. To be honest, Josh has said a lot of them already. Things like really researching the company, its values, its expectations, because they really, really do care about that stuff. They don't just say that. So I would say that's a really big thing for GSK. And I would also say something that stood out for me was that they really listen to your interests and your needs. So I was lucky enough to do rotations in my placement. I don't know how common that is for other ones, but I told them my interests, what I studied at A levels and what I really enjoyed at university, and they placed me based around that information. So I ended up working in behavioural science because I studied psychology, which was really, really interesting for me. So I was less on the science side of things and more in the central roles in ethics and compliance. And yeah, so they do really listen to you. And I know as well, I've looked throughout the year for a part-time role and was really lucky to be offered something with GSK for whilst I'm in my last year of university. So they definitely listen to your needs and what you're looking for and want to help you as much as possible. And I think with what Melissa was saying as well, like, I agree, she isn't just saying that people are nice just because that's what you should say. Everyone is really, really willing to help in that organisation. And I never had a manager or a team member who wasn't looking to help me or look after me. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone has any questions specifically about the placement itself.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And then, yeah, if you do have any questions for Lucy, please do pop them into the chat box and we'll come to the questions at the end. But I think we're going to pass over to Marcus now, who has a quite slightly different role from the two that you've heard so far. So Marcus, are you? Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, I'm here. Cheers,
I'll pass
Josh.
over to you.
Yep, so hi guys, I'm Marcus. I'm just finished my third year in chemical engineering, just doing my placement year. And I've also worked a bit as a waiter in the past. And in regards to GSK, I'm more involved with the real estate side of things, particularly the strategy and innovation side. So that's more like looking what things can be changed and how to implement those changes. And so right now, GSK is actually going through a huge change, splitting into two different companies. And with that are the two main sort of work streams I'm involved with is splitting the data into two, one for each company, and also capturing any sort of business intelligence and updating stakeholders about that. So the main things I like about GSK is that yeah, people are really friendly, and I know that my colleagues have probably mentioned that quite a bit earlier as well. But honestly, like before I joined, I thought everyone would be just like corporate robot kind of type thing. But now people are really approachable. People are friendly. In fact, it's even encouraged to reach out to as many people as possible, just to find out more about their roles, find out more about what they're doing. So yeah, people are very, very friendly and approachable. Secondly, I think just the timing when I chose to join, I got very, very lucky with actually joining at a time when GSK is going through such a huge change. Um, and I'm sure when you guys, if you guys join next year, you'll get the benefits of this as well. But just because it's such a big change GSK is going through means that you're exposed to so much more. Thirdly, the culture. I guess it sort of ties in with the friendly side of things, but the culture around GSK is very much around growth and development, people being approachable, supporting one another. And from what I've heard, that's quite unique to GSK, something that I like. And on that, actually, there's particularly as a placement student, there's loads of emphasis put around growth and development. When you join, they ask you what sort of things you're into, and then they'll try and match the projects that you're involved with according to that. And another way that they support you is that every week somebody quite senior sort of answers your questions in 30 minutes, sort of answers any questions you might have about LinkedIn, about working culture, about their role at GSK. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of emphasis put around your growth. About tips for joining GSK, I'd say one of the big things that helped me was researching a lot about the company, and particularly around culture, which I think Josh mentioned before. But even if none of that research actually comes out, you don't actually need to use all that research in the assessment center. What it will do is it will put you in a really relaxed sort of frame of mind, and that's just, I think, one of the keys to success at the assessment center is just being relaxed, just being yourself. On that as well, you want to make sure that when you're answering the questions, you sort of bring in all parts of your experience, and that really means using examples to back up what you say. And you also don't want to be shy as well, which I guess is sort of no-brainer. But yeah, just don't be shy, be yourself. And yeah, I think that's the best way of going about the selection process. Also, one thing that I didn't really appreciate is how much LinkedIn is used. So I work with a consultant who actually all of her jobs, all three of her jobs in the UK have just all been sourced through LinkedIn. And when I heard this, I was like, whoa, that's like, I just thought LinkedIn was just some sort of Facebook tool thing, but no, it actually has very real world applications, particularly as you step into this corporate world. And also, question that gets asked a lot is, do your managers look at your other social media? And they definitely do. So yeah, don't make the same mistake as I did, and make sure you tidy that up as well. And yeah, just my last point, just get stuck in. Any sort of opportunity that you get, I feel, approach things with an open mind. You'll get involved with more sort of things. You'll develop your skills more, and just overall you'll have a better time. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me and my roles. If you've got any questions, put them in the chat. We'll answer them later.
Yeah, thanks very much, Marcus. That was really interesting. And then last but not least, we've got Emmeline, who's one of our current graduates. And I believe she's going to take you through a little bit about her experience so far. And as Marcus said, if you do want to have pop any questions in the chat box, please do so, and we'll come to them at the end. So Emmeline, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks, Josh. Hi everyone, yeah, I'm Emmeline. I'm a current commercial grad on the consumer healthcare part of the business. I joined in August this year. So kind of the way the grad scheme works is you have 2 years, so that makes up 2-year-long rotations. So currently my role is in the sales aspect of the commercial grad scheme. I work on the Amazon account. I guess my title is an Amazon Customer Business Executive, which basically means I support the account manager on, making sure the account runs smoothly day to day, but also kind of going after the negotiation side of sales, securing promotions, working a lot with the kind of external buyers at Amazon. Yeah, it's a really interesting role, and I guess kind of from where I came from, I did a placement at L'Oreal, which was really, really valuable, and kind of similarly worked on the Superdrug account, again, supporting the account manager there. And I kind of really found that I loved a commercial role and working within sales. And that was what really drove me to find, a commercial role with a similar kind of rotation side. And I was really interested in joining a healthcare company. So I studied at Bath University, and I did business management, as I said, with a year in industry. A lot of people don't kind of do a degree that's relevant to or that related to their role at GSK. It varies a lot. A lot of people come from kind of the science side into GSK, but work on the commercial kind of business side of the business. So certainly that's not something that should put you off at all. I guess my kind of role, I really have been given ownership over the grocery part of the Amazon business. So my manager looks over Amazon Core, which I support him on, but I've been given full responsibility over Amazon Fresh, which is the grocery aspect, and it's kind of a newly launched. It's very exciting, and that's kind of one thing that I've really enjoyed about GSK is the opportunity to really get involved with like the kind of nitty gritty of the business. Like you're given a lot of responsibility and a lot of ownership over the kind of parts of business that you're interested in getting involved with. I also wanted to say kind of that there's a lot of emphasis on development at GSK. The training side is really, I guess there's a lot of opportunity. I've kind of done presentation training already, negotiation training, a lot of finance training, and being upskilled on all of these elements is so valuable. And I was really looking for that as part of my grad scheme. And I guess one of the really useful things about joining in a grad scheme is all this upskilling that you get to take part of or be a part of. I also want to say the social side of GSK, although I kind of onboarded completely virtually, as have all the other grads and a lot of the placement students as well. We've been doing lots of like virtual socials. We did like last week a jelly baby and pasta little building of a tower, which, all these like silly things, but it's really nice that people just want to interact with each other and make time for that. Team meetings every week, people really want to get involved, and as kind of echoing what everyone else has said, people are really friendly and really want you to join the company in a positive way and get the most out of that experience as well. Also very like collaborative environment. People are working together. They're not, working against each other, which some people might say, can happen in other businesses, but it's very, very collaborative. People are working to kind of build each other up and, achieve really great results from different projects because of that collaborative environment. And yeah, I suppose on the application process, as I said, any questions, like pop them in the chat. I applied last year, so in 2019, in November, I think, or maybe so this year might be a bit earlier. but a really smooth application process where throughout it you're kind of in communication with GSK, which I found really valuable. Any questions, any problems? I remember I had a problem with the assessment video, that none of my audio was working, and they contacted me, told me that I had an opportunity to re-record. So, you know, anything like that, please don't worry if something goes wrong. You know, these things always happen. Also, one thing I'd really like to say on the assessment centre, it was really emphasised that it's a CV-less assessment centre. You know, when you get to that stage and when you come in, it's completely about you. It's not about what grades you've got, or you know, they're just interested in finding more about you. So yeah, really, really positive experience from application and onboarding, and currently my role now. So yeah, any questions, please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any.
Thanks so much, Emmeline. And yeah, thanks to Melissa, Lucy, Marcus, and Emmeline, of course. So yeah, we are going to now be able to answer questions. I've seen a few coming into that chat box. Before we do so, I'd just like to point you in the direction. We do have our careers page here. I've also just put in the chat box a link to our application forms for our industrial placement program. So check out that srg-gsk.co.uk website, and it's got all the information and the actual roles that are open right now. I've also put in a link to our graduates page as well. So if you are interested in our graduate scheme, the Future Leaders program, that is going to be opening on Wednesday. So I've just popped that link in the chat box too, and you can check out the different options there as well. So we are going to go through some of the questions that I've seen coming through. So we've had a quick question: are there group exercises at the